The poorest field in the valley. In a quiet valley where the hills rolled like sleeping giants, there lived a farmer named Elan. His hut stood at the very edge of the village, where the soil was cracked and stubborn, refusing to yield more than a handful of grain each season. While other farmers boasted fields of golden wheat and orchards heavy with fruit, Elan's land gave him only dust, stones, and the occasional withered stalk of corn. Elan was not born poor. Years ago, his family had owned a modest but healthy farm near the river, but a great flood had swept away the fertile topsoil, leaving behind nothing but barren clay. His father had died trying to rebuild it, and his mother had passed soon after from grief and hunger. Now Elan lived alone, tilling the same broken earth every morning before the sun rose, and returning every evening with hands blistered and empty. Despite his poverty, Elan was known throughout the village for one thing: his kindness. He would share his last piece of bread with a hungry traveler. He would carry water for the elderly. He would mend fences for neighbors who mocked him behind his back. Some said he was foolish for giving away what little he had. Elan simply believed that kindness was the only wealth he could afford, and so he gave it freely. One autumn evening, as the sky turned the color of burnt amber, Elan was walking home from the market, where he had sold nothing and bought nothing, for he had nothing to sell and no coin to spend. It was then that he saw an old man slumped against a crumbling stone wall by the roadside. The man's clothes were nothing more than rags, his beard tangled with dust, his feet bare and bleeding from the rocky path. He looked up at Elan with tired, watery eyes and whispered, "Please, anything. I have not eaten in 3 days." Elan knelt beside him without hesitation. He reached into his worn satchel and pulled out the only thing he had left, a small dry piece of bread he had been saving for his own dinner. He broke it in half and placed it gently in the old man's trembling hands. "Here," Elan said. "It is not much, but it is what I have. You need it more than I do tonight." The old man stared at the bread, then at Elan, his eyes glistening. "You would give this to a stranger when you yourself have so little?" Elan smiled faintly. "A man who has nothing understands hunger better than anyone. I cannot walk away and let you starve while I still have breath in my body." The old man ate slowly, savoring every crumb as though it were a feast fit for a king. When he finished, he looked at Elan for a long moment, and something in his gaze seemed to shift, the tiredness in his eyes replaced by a strange, knowing light. "You have given me more than bread tonight, young farmer," said the old man. "You have given me proof that kindness still lives in this world. Tell me, what is your name?" "Elan," the farmer replied. "Elan," the old man repeated, as if tasting the word. "I will remember it." And with that, the old man arose to his feet, though a moment ago he could barely move, and walked into the shadows of the forest. Chapter 2. Disappearing before Elan could say another word. Elan did not think much of the encounter after that night. He returned to his hut, his stomach empty, and slept as he always did, exhausted but at peace with his choice. The next morning, however, something strange happened. As Elan stepped outside to begin his hopeless work in the field, he found the same old man standing at the edge of his land, leaning on a twisted wooden staff. But this time, the man looked different. His rags had transformed into robes the color of midnight, embroidered with silver thread that seemed to shimmer like starlight even in the dull morning sun. His eyes, once weary and pale, now glowed with a deep, ancient wisdom. Elan stumbled back in shock. Who are you?" The old man's lips curled into a gentle smile. I am called many things in many lands, Elon. Some call me a wanderer, some call me a trickster, but those who understand my true nature call me a wizard. Elon's mouth fell open. He had heard tales of wizards in stories told by traveling merchants, beings of immense power who tested the hearts of mortals, rewarding the pure and punishing the wicked. He had never believed such stories were real. Last night, the wizard continued, I came to this village disguised as a beggar, testing the hearts of every household. I knocked on the doors of the wealthy, the proud, the comfortable. Every one of them turned me away, some with insults, some with threats. But you, Elon, the poorest man in this valley, you gave the last bread from your own table without a moment's hesitation. Elon lowered his eyes. I only did what felt right. That, said the wizard, is precisely why you deserve what I am about to give you. The wizard raised his staff, and the ground beneath Elon's feet began to hum with a soft golden light. The farmer felt warmth spread through his chest, as though the sun itself had settled inside him. I cannot make you rich with gold, for gold corrupts hearts too easily. Instead, I give you something greater, the gift of the earth's blessing. From this day forward, whatever you plant with true intention and honest labor shall grow beyond the limits of ordinary nature. Your fields shall never know true drought. Your harvest shall feed not just yourself, but all who hunger around you. But remember this, Elon, this gift is bound to your heart. The moment you use it for greed, cruelty, or selfish gain, it shall vanish as quickly as it came. Elon fell to his knees, overwhelmed. Why me? There are wiser men, stronger men. Power given to the proud breeds tyranny. Power given to the humble breeds hope. I have wandered 1,000 villages, Elon, and rarely have I found a heart as selfless as yours. Use this gift well, and it will outlive you in the memories of those you help. Before Elon could respond, the wizard's form began to dissolve into the morning mist, his voice echoing faintly on the wind. Grow, Elon. Grow not just your fields, but
Chapter
your
3.
spirit.
The First Harvest.
And then he was gone.
Elon stood alone in his field, unsure if what had happened was real or merely a dream born of hunger and exhaustion. But when he looked down at his hands, he noticed a faint golden shimmer fading from his fingertips. Hesitant but hopeful, Elon walked to the driest, most barren corner of his land, where nothing had grown in years. He knelt down, dug a small hole with his bare hands, and placed a single kernel of corn into the earth, the very last seed he owned. He covered it gently with soil and whispered, "Grow, please, not for my sake, but so I may share you with those who need you more." At first, nothing happened. Elon sighed, wondering if he had imagined the entire encounter. But as he turned to walk away, he heard a soft rustling sound behind him. He turned back in astonishment. From the very spot where he had planted the single kernel, a green sprout was pushing through the soil, not slowly, as nature intended, but rapidly, visibly, growing inch by inch before his very eyes. Within minutes, a full stalk of corn stood tall and golden, heavy with ripe ears of grain. Elon laughed, a sound of pure disbelief and joy that echoed across the empty field. He ran to gather more seeds from the village, borrowing what little others could spare, and planted every inch of his land before nightfall. By the next morning, his entire field was transformed. Where there had once been cracked earth and dying weeds, there now stood rows upon rows of flourishing crops, corn taller than a grown man, wheat golden as sunlight, vegetables bursting with color and life. It was as though the wizard's blessing had awakened the very soul of the land itself. News of Elon's miraculous harvest spread quickly through the village. Neighbors gathered at the edge of his field, staring in disbelief at what once had been the poorest patch of soil in the valley, now more abundant than any farm they had ever seen. "How is this possible?" they whispered among themselves. "Elon has always had the worst land in the valley." Elon did not boast or explain. He simply smiled and began distributing baskets of fresh vegetables and grain to every family who came to him, especially those who, like him, had struggled through the harsh seasons with empty stomachs and tired hands.
Chapter 4: Whispers of Greed. As months passed, Elon's fields continued to flourish beyond anything the valley had ever witnessed. He shared his harvest generously, feeding widows, orphans, and struggling families who had once looked upon him with pity. Slowly, the village that had once ignored him began to respect him. Some even revered him as a blessed man touched by the divine. But not everyone in the village welcomed Elon's fortune with joy. Among the wealthiest men in the valley was a merchant named Doran, a man whose granaries overflowed with grain hoarded from years of exploiting poorer farmers through unfair trade and crushing debts. Doran had built his fortune not through kindness, but through cunning and control. He set the prices of grain, controlled the flow of water from the river, and ensured that no farmer in the valley could rise above him. Elon's sudden abundance threatened everything Doran had built. If the people no longer depended on his stored grain, if they could get food freely from Elon, his power over the village would crumble. Doran visited Elon's farm one evening, his face carefully arranged into a mask of friendliness. "Elon," he said, forcing a smile, "your harvest is truly remarkable. The gods must favor you greatly." "I do not know about the gods," Elon replied honestly, "but I have been given a gift, and I intend to use it to help those who need it most." Doran's smile tightened. "A noble sentiment, but surely a man as blessed as you deserves more than a simple farmer's life. Sell your harvest to me, and I will make you the wealthiest man in this valley. Gold, land, servants, anything you desire." Elon shook his head firmly. "The gift I was given was not meant for gold, Doran. It was meant to feed the hungry, not to fill the pockets of the already wealthy." Doran's expression darkened, though he masked it quickly. "Very well," he said coldly. "But mark my words, farmer. Kindness does not build empires. One day, you may regret refusing me." He turned and left without another word, but Elon could feel the weight of unspoken threats lingering in the air.
Chapter 5: The Merchant's Betrayal. Doran was not a man who accepted defeat easily. In the weeks that followed, he began spreading rumors throughout the village, whispering doubts into the ears of frightened, superstitious villagers. "Have you not noticed," Doran would say to anyone who listened, "that Ellen's crops grow unnaturally fast? Such magic is unholy. Perhaps he has made a pact with a demon, not a wizard. Perhaps this abundance comes at a terrible cost we cannot yet see." Fear is a powerful weapon, more destructive than any blade. Slowly, doubt crept into the hearts of villagers who had once been grateful for Ellen's generosity. Some began avoiding his farm. Others whispered behind his back, calling him cursed rather than blessed. Doran, seeing the seeds of fear taking root, devised a darker plan. Under the cover of night, he sent his hired men to sabotage Ellen's fields, trampling crops, poisoning a section of soil, and setting fire to one of his storage sheds filled with harvested grain meant for the village's poorest families. When Ellen awoke to the smell of smoke and the sight of his fields in ruin, his heart shattered. weeks of hard work and generosity reduced to ash and destruction in a single night. For the first time since receiving the wizard's gift, Ellen felt something dark stir within him, not sadness, but anger, a burning, consuming rage toward Doran, whom he suspected immediately. That night, as Ellen stood amid the wreckage of his fields, fists clenched and eyes burning with fury, a familiar golden light shimmered in the darkness before him. The wizard appeared once more, his expression grave. "I warned you, Ellen, that this gift is bound to your heart. I feel the anger swelling within you, Ellen. Be careful. The moment you seek revenge instead of justice, the moment you let hatred guide your hands instead of compassion, the gift I gave you will vanish forever, and something far darker may take root in its place." Ellen trembled, torn between grief and rage. "He destroyed everything I built to help others. Should I simply forgive him and do nothing?" "There is a difference," the wizard said, "between seeking justice and seeking vengeance. Justice protects the innocent and holds the guilty accountable without corrupting your soul. Vengeance destroys everyone it touches, including the one who seeks it. Choose wisely, Ellen. Your next decision will define the man you become." With those words, the wizard vanished once more, leaving Ellen alone with his broken fields and an even more difficult battle, the one within his own heart.
Chapter 6: The Path of Justice. Ellen spent that night awake, staring at the smoldering remains of his storage shed, wrestling with the storm of emotions inside him. Every instinct screamed for revenge, to burn Doran's granaries in return, to expose him publicly, to make him suffer as the village had suffered under his greed for years before. But as dawn broke over the valley, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, Ellen remembered the wizard's words: justice, not vengeance. Instead of seeking violent retribution, Ellen gathered the villagers together at the center of town. He spoke not with anger, but with calm, unwavering honesty. "My fields were destroyed last night, not by nature, not by curses, but by human hands sent to silence generosity out of fear and greed. I do not say this to accuse without proof, but I ask that we as a village stand together against those who would rather see us starve independence than thrive in freedom." The villagers, many of whom had grown suspicious of Ellen due to Doran's rumors, now saw the truth laid bare before them: the burned shed, the trampled crops, evidence of sabotage rather than curse. Doran's hired men, fearful of punishment, eventually confessed under the village elders' questioning, revealing Doran's involvement in the attack. The village, once divided by fear and rumor, united in outrage against Doran's betrayal. Doran, faced with public disgrace and the collapse of his once unquestioned authority, fled the valley in shame that very night, his ill-gotten wealth seized and redistributed among the families he had exploited for years before. Ellen did not celebrate Doran's downfall with vengeful satisfaction. Instead, he focused on rebuilding, not just his fields, but the trust and unity of the village itself.
Chapter 7: Growing Together. With Doran gone and the truth revealed, the village rallied around Ellen, not out of fear or superstition, but genuine gratitude and respect. Farmers who once envied his fortune now worked alongside him, learning to cultivate their own lands with patience and honest labor, inspired by Ellen's example rather than jealous of his gift. Ellen used his blessing wisely, replanting his ruined fields, which flourished once more beneath his careful, humble hands. But this time, he did something different. He taught others. He shared his knowledge of soil, water, and patience, though he could not share the wizard's magic itself. He organized the village into a cooperative, where those with abundant harvests helped those still struggling, ensuring no family in the valley went hungry again. Slowly, the entire valley transformed. What was once a place of scarcity and desperation became a thriving community, bound not by magic, but by the values Ellen had embodied from the very beginning: kindness, humility, and selfless generosity. Years passed. Ellen grew older, his hair turning silver, his hands weathered from decades of honest work. Though his magical gift never faded, he used it sparingly, always mindful of the wizard's warning, always guided by compassion rather than personal gain. One evening, as Ellen sat outside his now prosperous home, watching the sunset paint the valley in brilliant orange and gold, he saw a familiar figure approaching. The same old man, still cloaked in robes that shimmered like starlight, leaning on his twisted wooden staff. "You have done well, Ellen," the wizard said, settling beside him. "In all my years of wandering, few have carried this gift with such grace. You did not let power corrupt you. You did not let anger consume you. You built not an empire of gold, but a legacy of kindness." Ellen smiled, his eyes reflecting the setting sun. "I only did what felt right, just as we did that night we first met." The wizard chuckled softly. "That, my friend, is the truest magic of all, a heart that remains unchanged by power, wealth, or hardship. The world needs more hearts like yours." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the valley into a peaceful twilight, the wizard arose to his feet once more. "My work is done, Ellen. I must continue my journey, testing other hearts in other lands, searching for others like you." "Will I see you again?" Ellen asked. The wizard smiled knowingly. "Perhaps, or perhaps my gift will simply live on through the kindness you've planted in every heart you've touched, including your children and theirs after them." With that, the wizard disappeared into the twilight one final time, leaving Ellen alone under the stars, surrounded by fields that whispered softly in the evening breeze. Fields born not just from magic, but from the enduring power of a truly generous heart.
Epilogue: The Legacy. Long after Ellen had passed, the villagers continued to tell his story to their children, not merely as a tale of magic and wizards, but as a lesson passed down through generations, that true wealth is not measured in gold or power, but in the willingness to give when you have little, to forgive when you have every right to hate, and to lift others up even as you rise yourself. The valley, which was once known as the poorest in the land, became known throughout the kingdom as the Valley of the Giving Heart, a place where travelers, no matter how poor or ragged, were never turned away, where strangers were fed before questions were asked, and where kindness was considered the greatest magic of all. And somewhere in villages far beyond that valley, an old man in shimmering robes continued his endless journey, staff in hand, searching for the next humble heart worthy of a gift more powerful than any spell, the simple, unshakable choice to be kind.